After a long, your favorite channel magic moment is here with the movie of war. The year is 1945, which means World War II. And today I am going to tell you the story of a hero in this war, which will really leave a mark on your heart. A tank named Fury, and there are 5 American soldiers. There are thousands of Nazi forces in front of them. You can understand what the result of this can be. But let me tell you in advance. After watching this movie, you will really understand that war cannot be won with strength alone. To win a war, you have to apply your best war strategy. I was talking about one of the best war movies I have ever seen, Fury. So without further ado, let's start today's explanation of this amazing movie. And yes, I want to see 1,000 likes on this explanation. So let's quickly start today's video with a like. April 1945, towards the end of World War II. At this time, there was a fierce battle between the Western Allied forces and the Nazi forces of Germany. Hitler's fall was almost at its final stage, and the Allied forces led by the Americans had also penetrated deep into Germany. However, Hitler's Nazi forces were also fighting fiercely until their soldiers were left. Due to this terrible war between the two sides, the whole of Germany has almost become a ruin. In the opening scene of the movie, we see a German commander riding a horse through this ruin. After going a little far, a soldier suddenly jumped from a tank and knocked the German commander out. Then that soldier also freed the commander's horse. The soldier who wounded the commander in a fit of intense revenge is named Don Kelly. He himself is an American soldier. He has a deadly tank named Fury of the U.S. Army under his command, which was sent to fight the Germans. After eliminating the enemy commander, Don enters his tank Fury. There were 3 other soldiers inside, but none of them were in a good mood at all, because one of their team members had died at the hands of the Germans some time ago. This tank was operated by a total of 5 people. Each of them had a code name. Commander Don Kelly was called War Daddy by everyone, because it was not wrong to call him the father of the enemy on the battlefield. Then there was Boyer, whose nickname was Bible, because he was quite religious. There were also 2 other soldiers named Grady and Gordo in this tank. The soldier named Red, who was with them, died at the hands of the Germans. These 5 operated the tank together. Anyway, everyone was upset by Red's death, so they started arguing among themselves inside the tank. However, after a while, when intense bombing started around them, Don forgot everything and asked everyone to focus on the war. In the meantime, the Nazis were bombing one after another from the sky with their planes. So they moved the tank from there and took it to a distant army camp, because this tank needs some repairs right now. Then after going to the neighboring camp, they first arranged to remove Red's body. Then Don asked Boyette to do the necessary repairs on the tank, because in a short while they would have to leave for another mission in the north of Germany. In fact, no matter what happens in the war, there is no extra time to play. Don rested for a while with his companions in this army camp. Then when he returned to the tank, a young soldier came and introduced himself to him. This young man named Norman said that he had been appointed as the new assistant driver for Fury. That is, from now on he would carry out Red's duties. But look at him. He is very young. Also, there is no trace of war in his eyes, but rather, what is there is only fear. That is why Don cannot believe at first that he is the new assistant of this tank. He gets very angry with his team, because he needs someone with experience. When Don asks him, "How long have you been in the war?" he says, "I just joined 3 weeks ago." Hearing this, Don's mind gets even worse. He also says, "I don't even know what it's like inside a tank to this day. Actually, I was a typewriter, and I was forced to go into this war." Hearing all this, Don can't believe his ears. Taking such an innocent boy with him to the war means not only sacrificing him, but also inviting his own death. But even then, he has to obey the team's orders. So Don is forced to add Norman to his team. However, when Norman goes to meet the others, they start laughing and joking at him, which you can also call bullying. Anyway, Norman already understands that war is not something ordinary. Rather, he has to endure all this to survive here. Anyway, he then went inside the tank and took a good look inside. But then, seeing the blood and dirt inside, he came out and immediately vomited. Meanwhile, when American soldiers bring a German prisoner to the camp, Don rushes at him with a furious rage to kill him. In fact, since Red's death, his anger towards the Germans has increased manifold, so it seems that he will tear him apart like a chicken right now. However, several people struggle to stop him. Then he comes to Norman and tells him to shoot these people as soon as he sees them. But Norman says, "I haven't fired a single bullet yet." Hey, think about it. What a naive child has brought into the war. But even then, Don hands over his rifle, and Grady starts teaching him how to use the rifle. After spending some time resting, the platoon captain comes and briefs Don and the other commandos about the new mission. Then they start their journey to the battlefield with tanks again. Their mission this time is to join forces with a troop called Baker Company of the USA Army and attack the city of Kitchen, Germany. In this mission, many tanks move towards the Baker Company camp together. Don's tank Fury was right behind the first tank. Norman, along with everyone else inside the tank, was also explained his position. Don told him that if he saw any German soldiers around, he should immediately fire at them. Then they slowly moved towards the Baker Company campus. At first, they moved through open fields, but after a while, they had to move through bushes and trees. Don immediately warned everyone that German soldiers might be hiding in these bushes. Just like that, after a while, Norman suddenly saw two very young German soldiers through the trees. But he could not shoot at them, because they were very young people. But everyone soon realized how dangerous these children were. Suddenly, an anti-tanker threw explosives from behind the bushes. In an instant, the tank in front of everyone caught fire, and the soldier inside also caught fire. Norman saw one of them coming out with his body on fire in front of his eyes. Meanwhile, the soldier could not bear the fire any longer and shot himself. Seeing this scene, Norman's heart seemed to freeze. On the other hand, the other soldiers, including Don and Gordo, also started shooting and killing the German soldiers. Then Don got out of the tank and saw their position, and realized that Norman should have spotted them very easily. So he came and asked him, why didn't he shoot after seeing these Germans? Norman then said, they are just children. But Don slapped him under the ear and said, look, what these children can do. From then on, when you see the Germans, your hand automatically pulls the trigger, be it a German child or a baby. Hearing these words, Norman's whole sky collapsed. Why should you kill a person who has never killed a fly in his life? Now that the lead tank was destroyed, Don, as the second tank commander, took command of the convoy. He then commanded the entire platoon forward over the radio. After that, when he reached Baker Company, Don and the other tank commanders met the captain. The company captain told Don that there were some Germans lurking at the entrance to the city with machine guns and heavy weapons, so they had to clear this obstacle before entering the city. If the tanks covered the company's soldiers from the machine gun fire, the number of casualties would be much lower. Now, as the captain had said, Don took his tanks and moved forward, leaving the soldiers behind the tanks. Just as they had guessed, the Germans had already lurked at the entrance to the city. As soon as they saw the tanks, they started firing with heavy machine guns. When the soldiers quickly took cover behind the tanks, they started firing at the Boyette machine gun operators under Don's direction. When they saw them, the rest of the tanks started firing heavily. And in a moment, a part of the Germans was crushed. However, when some more Germans rolled on the ground and started shooting at the tank, the company soldiers also started shooting at them. Along with this, the soldiers inside the tank also started firing with the tank's machine gun. But in all this, he himself could not understand which direction Norman would fire. As his ammo ran out, he started reloading. At that moment, Gordo appeared in front of the Germans who were attacking him. This time, the Germans could not cope with this intense attack, and most of them started running away, being hit by the tank's bullets and the intense fire of the company soldiers. In the meantime, Gordo told Norman to aim and shoot at a pile of corpses, because if they were not confirmed dead, they might get up from this situation and attack. But to Norman, this seemed completely abnormal. He couldn't control himself anymore, and started screaming in frustration that he couldn't take it anymore. Seeing this, Don scolded him and silenced him. Don, using his very clever war experience, was able to locate all the German machine guns and fired 4 tanks in his direction simultaneously, blowing up all their heavy machine guns. You can understand here that he has been called War Daddy for a reason. However, after this intense attack, the Germans could no longer hold out and began to die in droves. In the end, the American soldiers almost killed them and cleared them completely. But Norman was still watching from inside the tank. So at the end of the fight, Don told him that he once had the best soldier in the city platoon, and now he has a clumsy idiot in his place. Norman then said that he was only trained to type 60 words in a minute. He had never seen these tanks in his life, but he was trying his best. However, after the war ended, the American soldiers captured a German. This time, their plan was to kill him in front of everyone. But then Don stopped them and told Norman to come out of the tank. Then he gave him a pistol and told him to kill the German. Because, to survive in the battlefield, he had to show this much nerve. Also, this murder would be the first killing in Norman's life. But Norman said that he could never kill this man. Also, the German started crying after showing him pictures of his children and wife. Seeing all this, Norman's heart melts even more. But Don says, if you don't kill him today, then I will kill you. Now it's your decision. Will you die yourself or kill this German? After thinking a lot, Norman says, kill me. But even then, I can't do something like killing people. Hearing this, Don realizes that enough is enough. Then he forces him to sit on the ground with great force, and forces him to pull the trigger by beating his hand. And in this way, he sends the man up with Norman's hand. Now after such an incident, Norman is completely shocked, and he falls into a lot of trauma. Now instead of his nerves getting stronger, he starts breaking down more. Just then, Gordo and the other soldiers tell him that Don's madness is the reason he is so successful in the war. No one has been able to keep his crew alive for so long like him. He not only shows toughness, but also takes care of his crew at the right time. For example, after a while, Don comes and asks Norman to eat, because he hasn't seen him eat anything all day. Then, after this fight at the entrance of the city, They all head inside the city. While going, they see the hanging bodies of some people on the way. Those who had written on their chests that they refused to fight for the Germans. So the SS group has declared them cowards and punished them. Seeing this, Don says, "Look, who are you trying to save?" They don't hesitate to kill their own people for the sake of war. However, upon entering the city, they first encounter a hidden sniper. However, Don quickly locates him and fires at him, blowing up the sniper. Then, when they try to attack with a machine gun from inside some buildings, he easily kills them. In the meantime, a strength has returned inside Norman. So this time, he himself starts firing on several German soldiers and sending them to hell. After that, he also gets a lot of praise from Don for perfect shooting. Then, they captured the city very easily. Then the remaining German soldiers came with a white flag and surrendered to them. Here it is seen that the Germans were so clever that they were trying to fight this war only with children. So when the successful children raised their hands and went out, an SS commander was seen there. Don pointed at him and said, "This is the real culprit who put his own people in such danger. So his time has come." As soon as he said this, another soldier came and made the commander's head a complete dome. Then all the soldiers together made this city their own city. Don went inside a building with Norman and saw that several Germans had committed suicide in the morning after drinking all night, because they knew that after a while the American soldiers would come and kill them all. So they thought it was better to die by their own hands than to die at the hands of the enemy. Then he himself went and saw a woman walking in another building. After entering there with Norman, he searched the room and found another girl. They were both very scared and thought that the Americans might do something bad to them. But Don told them to take eggs from his quota and make breakfast for them without telling them anything. In the meantime, Norman saw a piano and started playing it. Just then, this girl named Emma was impressed by his piano playing and immediately started singing along to the piano. I mean, these two girls were quite reassured by their behavior. Seeing all this, Don realized that Emma might have liked Norman. So Don then said to Norman, "If this girl wasn't impressed by you, I would have blown her up." Then he signaled for him to spend some time with her. So Norman took the girl to another room. His sister tried to stop him, but Don told him to let her be like them. Then Norman and Emma spent some time alone in that room. They exchanged affection. Then Norman came out and sat at the dining table with Don, and Emma and her sister started making breakfast for them. But after a while, when breakfast was ready, Grady opened the door and entered the room. Grady was also a bit of a bad guy among them. When he saw Emma next to Norman, he started bullying her a lot and making fun of her. In fact, they were also quite jealous when they saw how well they were treating these two girls, because they all wanted what happens to girls on the battlefield to be done to them. But Don made it clear that they should not get even a scratch on either of them. Hearing these things, there was quite a rift in their friendship, because they could not even imagine that Don would do such a thing to them for a boy like Norman. Even in the midst of all these stories, Grady keeps teasing Emma. Then Don gave Emma his share of breakfast, because Grady had eaten some of Emma's share. Then while eating, Grady started telling them a disturbing story about killing hundreds of horses while he was in France. Don was already annoyed by all this, and Grady's laughter and jokes made him even angrier. But seeing him get angry, everyone fell silent. Meanwhile, when Don got a new mission, he went to the colonel and asked about his mission. On the other hand, Norman wanted to write down Emma's address, but Grady somehow forcibly took him away from there. However, in this new mission, a group of their soldiers were trapped a little far away, and they were unable to move forward due to fear of German tanks. So Don was given the responsibility of going there and providing them with protection. As a result, everyone set off for the tank again, and Norman was forced to go too. But whenever they got close to the tank, a German plane came overhead and started a terrible bombing. Norman and other soldiers got under the tank to escape this terrible bombing. But after the bombing, when the plane left, Norman looked out from under the tank, and he saw a huge wreckage. His beloved Emma is lying in the rubble. He can't keep himself calm. After seeing this scene, it's as if he came very close to Emma in this moment. That's why her loss is completely tearing his mind apart so quickly. But Grady quickly takes him away from there. Accepting the brutality of war, Norman has to return to the tank. A journey of uncertainty begins again. Don tells him that after killing Germans in Africa and France in this war, he is now killing them in Germany. The war may end very soon, but before that, many more people will have to die. Talking like this, they slowly move forward. But suddenly, before they understand the situation, a terrible bullet comes from afar and completely destroys one of their 4 tanks. Don quickly tells the other 3 tanks to turn around. He realizes that they have encountered the terrible German tank Tiger I. During World War II, the Allied forces feared this German tank like a beast, because this tank was not easily penetrated by any bullet. And because of this, no matter how much fire was fired at it, this tank remained completely intact. But Don was not to be feared. He took all 3 tanks back a little while, firing steadily. Then, on Don's order, he started firing at the front of the 3 tanks at full speed. But that German tank was so dangerous that it blew up 2 tanks alone. Only Fury was left. Don then used his extraordinary war IQ and turned Fury behind the German tank. In the meantime, the Germans were able to hit them, but they did not suffer much damage, because Fury was also a very good tank. This time, as Don said, after getting the best position, this German tank was completely destroyed by hitting the front of the tank twice in a row. Then, when the 2 crew members tried to escape from inside the tank, Don shot them dead. Norman also shot the tank commander from inside and sent him to hell. In this way, despite losing 2 of their own tanks, they were able to destroy the most dangerous German tank at that time. But their mission did not end there. Don realized that their radio was already broken when they contacted the reinforcement radio. That is, they had to make their own decisions. Then, Don decided to continue their mission alone with Fury. But the others said that it would be too risky, because the work of 4 tanks is not something that 1 tank can do. But even then, they started heading towards the mountains again. However, after walking for some distance, a huge mine exploded under the tank, due to which the Fury's chain broke and the wheel was also damaged. Seeing all this, Don realized that there was no way for them to move forward with this tank. Now, they have to repair the tank anyway, and then go on their mission. But it will take them a long time. Seeing all this, they realize that they are trapped in this deserted valley. In addition, they have no radio to communicate with their own division. So Don then decides to stay there until a US Army team passes this way. As a result, he sends Norman to a distant forest to guard, while the others try to fix the tank properly. Meanwhile, after Norman has been guarding for a while, he suddenly hears the melody of a song in a distant voice and looks towards it. And seeing this scene, his eyes pop up. A huge German army of about 300 people is approaching them. Seeing this scene, he quickly runs and tells Don the whole story. Hearing the description of his face, Don understands that this group of soldiers is a team from the most dangerous SS battalion in Germany. Hearing their words, Grady and Cod want to pack their things and quickly leave. But Don says that he has never fled from the battlefield, and this time he will not leave, because this tank is his home. Saying this, he climbs on top of the tank. Hearing his words, everyone else is surprised that how can he stop the SS with this broken tank? But Don still stands by his words and tells the others to leave. Even though everyone wants to leave this time, Norman comes and says that he will also stay with Don. Then, seeing him, the others decide to stay together. But this decision is completely a death trap. It can be said that it is a suicidal decision, because how can 1 tank and 5 soldiers face 300 soldiers? Everyone understood that this might be their last trial. But the real glory of the battlefield is to do something for the country with your own life. However, everyone makes a terrible plan about Don. They bring some dead bodies on top of the tank and around it, and set it on fire, so that the Germans from a distance think that the tank is completely destroyed, but they will all be hiding inside the tank soon. Having said all this, Don took everyone and fully loaded the Fury's firing guns, because if they were going to kill so many people, they would need a lot of ammunition. Then they also brought about 50 hand grenades inside the tank, and then everyone quietly loaded the guns and waited for the Germans to come. Just in the evening, the SS battalion arrived there. When they saw that the Fury was on fire, they sent people to check inside the tank. Just then, Don and his companions, who were lying in wait, started firing on them. The Solider that opened the tank's lid, they shoot at him and killed him. Then they closed the lid and started firing intensely with all the firing guns of the tank at once. In this deadly firing, the Germans started dying in large numbers. As they hide in nearby buildings to escape the tank fire, Don and his crew blew them up. After a while, the intense firing left a pile of German corpses all around. Wow, it's really impressive that they've defeated the Germans with just 1 tank. After the heavy firing, the ammunition is finished after building a mountain of dead bodies. Then, on Don's orders, they threw smoke bombs outside the tank. Then, when the smoke filled the area, the Boyer brought the ammunition from the machine gun on the tank, and Don and Norman started covering fire on him. In the meantime, when some German soldiers got too close, they too started getting killed by Don. After that, Boyer and Norman managed to get inside, but Don still continued to fire on the soldiers approaching them. But finally, the ammunition in his rifle ran out. He killed the last German soldier with the butt of his rifle and killed 2 more with a pistol. But when another man managed to climb onto the tank, Don fought him hand to hand. Don caught him upside down inside the tank in a strange place and stabbed him in the throat. However, he himself was injured in the fight. After safely closing the tank lid, Boyer bandaged him. Then they continued to killing the Germans with new ammunition. But the number of members of this SS force was not very small. This time, they brought explosives and started throwing them at the tank, causing damage to a part of the Fury, and Grady was seriously injured in this damage, due to which he died within a short time. Meanwhile, they were running out of ammunition, but the Germans were not done yet. This time, Don planned to finish off the rest with a hand grenade. The Germans, unable to shake the tank, tried various plans. Now they spread out and slowly rolled the ground towards the Fury. Meanwhile, everyone in the Fury came out with their rifles and started killing the Germans, because their ammunition in their hands was already over. So now if they want to fight back, they will have to kill them with these German weapons. On the other hand, Don started finishing them off by firing machine guns from above. In the meantime, Boyer was about to die at the hands of the Germans. However, Norman killed the man and brought him inside the tank. Meanwhile, Gordo entered the tank and threw grenades from there and killed some more Germans. But even after all this, the Germans were not finished. On top of that, they now prepared their last effective weapon, that is, the German sniper. When Don tried to get out of the tank with his rifle, he was shot dead by a German sniper. And when Gordo goes to throw a grenade, he also gets shot, and his grenade falls inside their tank, so that Gordo hugs that grenade to his chest to save everyone. As a result, he also dies there. In this way, everyone dies, and only Don and Norman are left. What will they do now? All the ammunition they have is already gone. But Don, who is on top, is still fighting alone. But how much longer? This time, the sniper shoots Don 3 accurate shots in a row, because of which Don finally gives up hope. Then he enters the tank and apologizes to Norman. He says that everyone is in this situation today only because of him. Norman says that this is the real game of war, and we won this war. Norman confesses his resentment to him. Then he tells Don that he actually wants to surrender, because he is very afraid. But Don tells him that the SS men do not spare anyone. They will torture you terribly. It would be 1,000 times better for you to die. But Don doesn't want this little boy to die here either. So he tells him that there is a secret door at the bottom of the tank, and he should get out through that. The Germans have already surrounded the entire tank. They are trying hard to open the door of this tank. Whenever one of them tries to open the door, Don kills him with his revolver. But then the other two throw grenades at them and close the lid. With no other choice, Norman is forced to leave through that exit point. As soon as he goes out, those 2 grenades explode immediately, and this hero dies there. And all this Norman can do is watch. In this way, Norman tries to hide himself down for a long time. Meanwhile, all the SS soldiers are looking for another way to see if anyone is alive here. While searching like this, and young SS soldiers found him by torchlight. But to his surprise, the soldier left without telling him anything. In fact, this boy was the same age as Norman. Maybe he felt some pity for Norman. That's why he left there, by begging for his life. That's how Norman spent that night in a pit of death. Just when morning came, Norman entered the tank again. But this time, he saw all his companions lying there dead. Norman had nothing else to do, but he took off his coat and covered Don's face. Actually, this is the last end of a hero, where he has to sacrifice his life for his country. But suddenly, someone knocked on the door of that tank. Seeing this, Norman prepared for his final fight. He pointed his gun and waited for the enemy. But whoever opens the lid, then he sees that it is not the enemy, but their own platoon members. That is, finally, the other Americans have come to rescue this tank to see if anyone is alive. Here they are completely surprised to see Norman, because after so many people have died, it is truly unimaginable that one person can survive like a miracle. That is why everyone gives him military honors there. He keeps addressing him. But in Norman's eyes, the horror of this war is still there. He can't seem to accept the death of his beloved comrades. But this is the real indie of war. Because war is fought only to sacrifice themselves. Just like this, Norman looks at that tank from a distance with an observational eye. And this movie ends here with this scene. So let me know how you liked today's video. And if you liked it, give it a like. See you in the next video. Until then, everyone be well and healthy.